Hey everyone, it's Thomas Turnham from Screen Printing Artist. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create real products for your e-commerce needs or for art approvals. Everything is done in CorelDRAW 2025. Now there's three parts to this, creating real looking products in CorelDRAW. You're going to start with is first your artwork. So you make sure your artwork is prepped properly to actually put on a garment. So you need a garment that goes behind it, and then you're going to need to know how to output it so that it's going to provide you with the final product. I'm going to start with artwork that I want to output. In this case, this design is relatively simple. It's basically a simple graphic. The only complex thing about it is this bitmap kind of overlay that's on top of it. And basically it's a knockout filter, the distress overlay, if you will. I use the same process, whether it's a vector graphic or whether it's a bitmap, to mock it up for a real looking product. I'm going to select anything that's going to be the active print area. And I want to the biggest part of this is you want a high contrast background. So the background, you want it to be a lot darker or a lot lighter than what you're going to print and what you actually need that container for. So I'm going to make a container, a nested container. I'm going to hold down the shift key, I'm going to drag this across, and then I right click to make a duplicate. So now I'm going to take anything that's active in this image, not the background, and make that white so it's all high contrast. And then this will be essentially a container or an object that I'm going to nest that distress filter in and then map it on top. Because I don't want the distress filter to extend out in my mock-up past the printed area. I want it to be contained so it'll look realistic. So I'm going to grab everything here. I'm going to go to bitmaps, convert to bitmap. I get grayscale, 300 DPI is about right. It may be kind of big, but that's fine. And I say, okay, it's a bitmap. I'm going to go ahead and immediately trace it. I just use the quick trace version, see if that works okay. And now I can take my group of 15 objects that I just traced, hold the shift key, click here, and now I can hit the C and the E key, which aligns it horizontally and vertically to the original. Now this is the other bitmap that I just created, so I'm going to delete that. And now, if I click on this, you say it says group of 15 objects in the bottom property bar. And I'm going to ungroup it, hold the shift key, deselect the background, and then control L, which makes all of these pieces one piece. And then I can delete the background. If I zoom in here, I'll put a magenta outline so you can see it and no fill. This piece now is essentially a magenta piece that was set on top of that other one. And now if I flip this back, I hold the control key, I drag it across and it'll flip back this way. So basically like holding the cover of a book back on top of itself. I'll shift the page down just to put it behind everything, and then object, power clip, place inside frame. I want to place it inside that new frame that I've just created. This didn't work. Hold on. I want to object, power clip, place inside frame. I'm going to have to make sure I'm on the magenta border. There we go. And so that basically put power clip, as you can see, put it inside of this border that was on top of that. I just moved it off so you could see it. I'll undo that. And I can hit the right mouse key to get rid of that magenta outline. And now essentially I have created it for black because that'll work for a black shirt because it's going to knock everything out to black. If I have other colors I want to do, I want to modify this design for that. So I'm going to save it. But when I want to modify things quickly, I reduce it to the middle of the page. I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do a second page, and then I'm going to copy this, paste it. Now I have a shirt reference guide that I got. In this case, I know they wanted a black shirt and I know they wanted a royal shirt. So I'm going to take these two colors here, and then I can go to the black shirt, see about where it is. And then I can go to the royal shirt, hold the shift key, and drop that color in. And that gives me an RGB approximate for that color shirt. Now that'll be useful for me editing these colors. This is going to be my black one, and this will be my royal one. And what I can do, edit, place colors, just grab everything in the design that is certain color and change it. So replace objects, make sure color is selected. The color black in the design is RGB 000. And I want to replace everything in the design with this color royal. I'm going to make sure outlines is selected so that it'll replace everything in this distress overlay. So then I hit OK. hit yes, yes, and select off, and it looks like it worked. So I replaced everything that was black with this color royal. So now I have essentially both my pieces of art done. So I'm going to take this, we'll see, and then I can put it back here, Control V, and drag it down, and then it's below this one. Click. And then I have both my art files for my vector design here. Now I want to go ahead and do a more complicated design because this is a simple vector design with a distress overlay that I mapped for 2 colors of shirts. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a second one. Let me go ahead and delete this file, and I'll show you how that's going to work. Much more complicated of a file. So I'm going to import this image. So you can see this is a cute AI generated image of a golden retriever. And I want this on a shirt, no wording, just a picture of a golden on a shirt. Now, placing this on a shirt would be problematic fundamentally if we just took it and we slapped it on there, because you can see if I have a blue shirt or whatever color it is, I got to separate this image from the background. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to click this, I'm going to drag it off, right click, and then here I'm going to convert this image, bitmap, convert to bitmap. I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a grayscale. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this, adjusting the tone curve. It's always a good idea before you do tone curve, by the way, to save your file. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to darken this up. And you can see some of the background starts to get dark too. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that clicking the image again, I'm going to click here. I'm just going to go ahead and quick trace. Really simplified it, but all I'm really looking for, again, is a quick container because I want to realign it on my original image with that. So let me go ahead and do that. Keep it grouped and go back to the original image, CE, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult to realign it. Now, if it's getting confusing with the pieces behind it, I can always Control key and flip this out of the way, and then I can delete this background. And then what I can do is just look and see, is there areas here that I want or areas that I should delete? I'm going to go ahead, grab everything, group it, fill it. Now I could merge it, but with objects this complicated, a lot of times it's easier to just go ahead and convert it to a bitmap again. It's like this, and then trace it one more time. Yeah, it seems a little redundant doing it twice, but believe it or not, this actually works really well to keep the software happy. I'm going to ungroup this, and then I'm going to delete these pieces on the outside. I know I don't need those. It breaks it up into like 4 pieces. And then I know I don't need the original grayscale bitmap underneath. And then this, 3 objects. I think I can weld those. Oh, it's these pieces, these white pieces on top. So all I really need to do there is combine them, Control L. And now I'm going to flip my golden retriever back on. Hold the Control key, drag it across. As soon as it hits that center line, it'll flip the other way. And now I'm going to map that into this. I'm going to go Object, Power Clip, Place Inside Frame, map it in here. And now, relatively quickly, I've separated this image, even though it's a complicated outside border, from the background. Now I want to see how rough this background is. I'm going to put a medium tone, shift page down, and I can kind of see, it looks, does it look good in spots? Does it not look good in spots? And then you can kind of edit things. And I'll show you how to edit just really quickly how you can edit. Now I'm going to take the freehand tool, and I'm just going to click once, and then I'm just going to click here and just make little cutouts around areas that I don't want, double clicking. And so what I made an object, essentially made a cookie cutter that's going to cut that out. And I hold the shift key, click here, and I just say trim. And it just trims out that piece that I don't want. You could also edit individual nodes if you double click. Again, it takes a lot longer to do that. I like to avoid, again, starting here, click, double click, double click. And I don't really want any of this. I don't know, whatever that is. I'm going to take that out. Kind of see if I can do it in one shot. And then hold the shift key and trim. I get a little nervous if the power clip gets too complicated, especially with, if they get a zillion nodes, because sometimes it doesn't display well. When it gets to a certain point, so you're better off just going into Photoshop and cutting this out carefully and making paths and all that. We got a workable image right now that we can use. And now I need the garments prepped. So I have, again, my art here and art here. So I'm going to make another page. And then we can make final art approval or final product. And this is a Photoshop file. And Photoshop files import really well into Corel because they save the transparency. If this is a floating on a layer in Photoshop, I'm going to delete this extra one. I want this one with the values in it. And I'll get rid of this background too. Let me just check wireframe. Yeah, there we go. I want to make sure that this was all I was dealing with. And now what I want to do is I want to make a container for this. And the reason is because there's multiple ways you can use a container when you have a bitmap embedded in there. And so I'm going to click this and I'll go to wireframe mode. And then just as quick as I can here, I'll make a container that goes around the outside edge. If I want to center it, I hold the shift key down, click, and I hit C and E. Centers it vertical and horizontal. And then I'm going to make this black. In this case, I want to make it the darkest black I can. So I'm going to go change my color viewer so I can change the model to grayscale, and then I'll drag the gray, I'll drag it all the way down to the darkest black. Now it's darkest black, click this, shift page down, and now I have darkest black background behind it. That high contrast is going to allow me to make a quick container. So I shift, drag it across, right click, and now bitmap, convert to bitmap, grayscale is good. Say okay, save your file because it may kick you out. And again, if I just trace this now, it would have all these gray values in there. So I'd like to um, edit the tone curve. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the tone curve all the way white. And I like to drag the black point over just a little bit, just to make sure it's not squeezing outward too much. And then trace bitmap, quick trace. I got 3 objects, which is about right. And then I'm going to move it over and remap it onto the original, C and E. Delete the other bitmap, delete this, I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to delete the background, delete. There's another piece behind it, I'm going to delete that. Now I have my shape, magenta, no fill. You can see that graphic behind it. I'm going to grab that bitmap, shift page down. So I put it behind the black square that I originally made, and then object, power clip, place inside frame, right here. So now I hit delete. Now I've nested that shirt. One of the other things that's really useful is I'm going to duplicate that container now, right? I'll put just a quick color behind it just so you can see it easier. Control C and Control V. Now I put a second piece of it on top. I'm going to extract the shirt from it, delete it, and now you can see it's an empty frame essentially. So I click on it. If I was to put an outline, you'd see the outline. Essentially, this is an empty frame unless, even if I filled it, it'll still say it's an empty frame because I had something nested in there. So I want to right click and get rid of that nesting function. You remove that, I'm going to save it. Now, what I can do is I can import color references. I can make this into color, essentially. So if it was a jade color, I can just drop it on there. And you might say, well, that doesn't look very impressive because I covered everything up. But what you do is you go effects, lens, and now you can use, instead of no effect, you go to color limit. And now it changes and allows the value of the shirt to come through. And all you have to do is up the rate where you get the color. And now really quickly, once this is saved, Control S, I can change colors fast if I want to. I can go to a safety orange, I can go to pink. I can really quickly go through all of these garments and get the color that I want right from the manufacturer and pop it right onto my garment. And then in this case, we know we needed black and we needed, I can duplicate this real quick. I can just real quick, the other nice thing to duplicate all of that, get rid of the background. And we need royal, right? I need a royal shirt and get rid of these. I think we're pretty good here. So here's the 2 shirts I wanted. Just to save time, I've already got a hoodie that I did this to. So you can kind of see here. And this is what you do. You save your various products as templates. In the case of the hoodie, it's a little more complicated. So I'm going to change that to white because the fill on it was a different color. And the other thing is the strings, right? That are going to hang down in front of the design. But that's ready to go. So I just need to make that black, the shirt, and then I need to make a blue version. But I am going to use, like I said, I'm going to use the shirt colors on that just to make sure that I'm using the same exact process here. So this is power clip curve. Now what I want to do is Control C, Control V, and then I want to extract the contents, delete it. And now I've got this, which is white, get rid of the fill. And I want to fill that with black. And then I want to get rid of the frame, get rid of the outline, and then we're going to apply that lens color limit. And you can see color limit here, it's too light, right? So I just need to up it to where black is, probably not 95, but 90 might be good-ish compared to the shirt. It's about right. The other thing is these strings, they're actually, uh, page up, they're just another container. I can select everything else, not this square and not these. So I hold the shift key down, not these. And then I'm going to group it. There's two objects. You see that? Group it. I'm going to Control C, Control V, and then I'm going to put them down to the bottom, shift page down, and then object, power clip, place side frame, and I'm going to throw them in here. And then I'm going to fill them with black just so you don't potentially see any outlines here. You can kind of see that. And we're just going to add that little drop shadow here. And just pull it to the middle and then adjust it so it's, if you go below the outside edge, then it gets there, and then you can just kind of extend it out just a little bit here. And then we'll say 25 and about, you want a small number here, like 6, just so it looks realistic. And what that does is you'll see when you place the art on there, it kind of gives it a realistic looking effect. And now I can duplicate it. And then this is group, right? So ungroup it. And then I can change the royal to that color. And then all I have to do, I'm going to copy this so I can bring it into the power clip. Like that, click here, and paste it. And then that's just for the strings for the power clip. And then I can delete this because I don't need to be more stuff to be nested than necessary. And then I can delete this. And so now I have basically my mock-up, save it, go back to the artwork. Here's my artwork for black and royal blue, copy it, paste it, make it fairly small. You can kind of see where it's going to work on the t-shirt and the hoodie there. Kind of drag it until it's about the right size. And again, you could automate some of this with a script if you want to do it to even save a little bit more time, but it's good to know how to do this as quickly as possible. And here, just gonna slide over here, and I'm gonna center it, hit the C key, and then I'm gonna center it with this one, the E key. And we can also go take these same files now and drag them down and right click. Looks like it could be centered, moved over just a little on the hoodie there. And now, since I have the strings saved, I can shift page up and then click on the strings part of it and shift page up. And so now a very realistic presentation of this graphic, right? Save it. And now if I wanted, see what the golden retriever is going to look like, add another page after this, page down, import my shirt colors, and then delete this, and then you can import that artwork that we made here, Control C, Control V. This would be great for like a direct-to-film print. You can kind of lay it out, show what it's going to look like. And if you want to change the color of the garment, or just look here, Click, change color. Brown looks really good, for instance. So if you want a brown hoodie, would look really good. And then you just got to change the strings. So hold the control key, go in there, and click your brown, and hit finish. And same thing with a different product. Delete this, grab that, drag it down, click there. And in some cases, sales-wise, you may want to lift the strings up and make them like tighter here. There is ways of doing that just because if you didn't want that to overlap your image too much, if I shift page up, see how it kind of interrupts the look of the image. But what I could do in that case, if I was going to edit them, is I would just cut this short and I would just literally trim it, just kind of take it here, trim it to about there, and then you could trim it. Hold the shift click, tap C, then I'll let you do the trim effect, delete, and then you could just bring these up and you just align them essentially. I'm just dragging them up here, but you could make them look like they're above it, right? But you get the idea of, okay, now it doesn't interrupt the design. You can still see the design. You have your hoodie, save it. I could save that as a template too if I needed to lift that up or if I wanted to even, that sort of thing. But that gives you an idea how to quickly make a product. Okay, now that you have your products mocked up, we have both these pages. We're going to output this, and I like using a certain kind of nomenclature. So you're going to go File, Export for Web, and then you want to make sure PNG is always good because then the background is transparent. So you want a relatively small file, but RGB is make sure that that color mode is RGB. Keep it on transparency if you want a transparent PNG. And then what you really want here is to know the output size roughly of what you want. I'm just going to go 1500 wide, so just a little bigger than it is pixel wide, just so that you can tell from the file name what it is when you're placing it, and then hit save. And that way, when you go to output the next one, so I'll export for a web, everything being the same, put 1500 in here, and then save as. And then it's the same sort of thing here. You're going to go here, instead of black, you're going to put royal. I just did that by clicking on the other file, but I want to put royal here, PNG, and then hit save. And then I'm going to grab the black hoodie, file, export, web, 1500. And again, you might want a bigger file if you got zoom features in your interface or whatever. So, and of course you got to change this because it's a hoodie. So a black 8, that's the only change you need there, and save. And then of course this will be golden retriever. Now, I'm going to bring in a background template, and this would be useful if I was going to email this and for an approval. I just wanted to look, this is the name of my company. Maybe my company name is 50 or something. Ungroup it. You can see there's garments in here already. These are simple ones, and they aren't really made for sales presentations. They're made for just quick approvals. Let's throw a wood filter in here. Side frame right here. So I threw that in there. I'm going to save it. Now you could, if you're going to email it, I would go ahead and convert this right away to bitmap, just because otherwise what can happen is you get too many nested objects with too many images. You can end up overloading your file. So this is my background, and now I'm going to import my images, because then what you can do is you can add a little drop shadow to it. So it sets it off from the background a little bit. You can up that, just make it 75 and make it a little bit smaller just so it looks more realistic. 7. Um, just a little. This gives you that kind of little more realistic look. This, enlarge that, turn that a little bit. And then here, you want that same kind of drop shadow. So inject effect. You can see it just pops that little, that makes it look a little bit more appealing, but you get the idea is, and you can still move them around and keep the effects active. Um, so you get the most optimal layout for your design. And then this whole thing can be export for web, can be sent, and about 2000 is okay. It's still going to make a relatively medium-sized file. Save as, read for approval, PNG, hit save. And then you can see what that final file size is, and you can see file's 5 meg, so it'll easily email, and it'll still give you, you double click on it, it'll still give you the ability to zoom in pretty close. If you were to zoom in pretty close and see a lot of the details here for a decent approval. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how to make an approval quickly and also make products if you're going to do an online store or if you're going to submit to some of the online services that fills the product for you. As always, subscribe to my channel. You get lots of new videos coming out soon, and tell me what you think in the comments.